Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Power of Care podcast. I'm your host, Brianna Dance, and I have two guests today, my friends and my colleagues, Ayisha Jones, Keith Jones, and Deonte Smith. Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Okay, so they're going to tell us a little bit about themselves, what they do, and I'll introduce our topic, which is ADHD.
My name's Ayisha Jones Heath. I am currently a school social worker, a clinical school social worker, and a school-based health coordinator at a middle school in Ward 7 in Washington, D.C. And I have ADHD. I was a late diagnosis in graduate school. I was at age 27. And yeah, I'm very passionate about the topic of neurodivergence. And a lot of my clients also struggle with ADHD, whether it be adult, adolescent, and child.
Yeah.
I'm Deonte. I'm a behavior tech for DCPS, currently finishing my degree in mortuary science to become a funeral director. And I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in the first grade. So I knew pretty early on that I had ADHD, but didn't know in depth what it all, and like everything that entailed.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. And so now y'all both are helping people. That's how we know each other. I didn't even tell y'all how we know each other. So we all work at the same school, and we serve families and the students. But while working there, I was like navigating my own life and like how my brain worked. And I was talking to Ayisha about it. And I was like, what is going on with me? Like, I've been diagnosed with depression, like other anxiety, things like that. But something just it didn't seem right. Like I needed a guide. And so with her help, she helped me to get an evaluation, and it changed my life because I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like, yeah, it was a very thorough test. And now just wanting to help people understand their brains more and just like destigmatize it and talk about ways that we can just, manage it and navigate it. Because now you were diagnosed when you were younger. Mm-hmm. So like, were you in elementary?
I was in elementary.
Okay.
I was a huge behavior problem. So, so my mom she said she knew when I was 3 that it was something there, but she wasn't sure what it was. Mm-hmm. So I went through, because I am a part of DCPS, the special ed coordinator was like, told my mom the steps to go, to, where exactly to get me diagnosed. And, so I got diagnosed in first grade, but now as an adult, I've been educated more on it thanks to Keith. Asking her questions every day, like, is this an ADHD thing? ADHD thing that a little bit, because like even now I'm even considering going back to get on medication because I am an ADHDer who just take medication because my mom was against it when I was a child.
Right.
So I was on it for a short period of time, and the effect that it had on me, didn't like. So she always told me, you can control this on your own. Mm-hmm. So, and I think I do pretty well for controlling it on my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's important conversation is like, some people really do well with medication and some people don't, or just having to play with which one, how much. And so medication helps me, and along with other things. So we'll talk about that. But let's define it. So neurodevelopment disorders are a group of conditions with onset in the developmental period. The disorders typically manifest early in development, often before the child enters school, and are characterized by developmental differences or deficits in the brain processes that produce impairments of personal, social, academic, or occupational functioning. So that is the DSM term. We had to get clinical for a second. But how does it show up in our lives differently? I mean, it could look different for all of us. Because you're a parent, and there's like a lot of different responsibilities that we all have with work and things like that. So how does it show up?
Absolutely. Like it shows up different depending on what is going on in my life, right? So like now working in a school where I get the summers off or I get the longer breaks, in the summer, I'm a very different person than I am in the middle of the school year and maybe a month that we don't have any breaks, right? Or if my kids have soccer, soccer and baseball, and I'm managing those two, things can look a lot different depending on the day of the week. How exhausted I am. Did I eat? Did I this and that? So it varies the different stages in your life, whereas like creating systems formally or informally, whether you're diagnosed or undiagnosed, is like normal, your body's natural response. Whereas like looking back now, I had a lot of little weird ways of managing it. I remember being a night owl where I maybe hang out with everybody socially who wasn't going to class or know what they needed to do or whatever. And then I would come back home and turn on the computer and it's 1:00 at night and I'm banging that paper out, right? And so then when it's time to graduate, everybody's like, how? And it was like, because I was, finding my pockets of time or knowing what worked best for me. And so as time goes on, it varies, it changes, it depends on the person, it depends on your parenting style. How you were parented, just lots of things.
Yeah. And so I know, again, because it's like my mind is open now that I have clarity about my own diagnosis. It's like, okay, that's why, I start doing this and then I jump to another thing. And then I'm anxious now because like the cycle of like distractibility and then being overwhelmed because there's so many things you want to get done. And then for me, I was telling Smith the other day, like, then I have a depressive like moment or like episode of like how I feel about all of that.
Right.
And so how does it look for you? Like, does it show up?
Well, going back to our conversation that we had the other day.
Yeah.
Because what's so interesting to me is that it shows up differently for all of us.
Yeah.
And when you said, I go through, like mine's is, the aura is, I go through a depression. And I'm saying, well, mine doesn't ever show up in that way where I feel depressed, but I do have disappointment.
Yeah.
With having ADHD, because my mind is moving faster than I actually can.
Yes. Define so well.
No, seriously. So
like the speed is like
the speed is, it's really, even now I'm like, oh, what am I going to say?
Yes.
But that, and my mind is everywhere, literally. So, and then that comes with anxiety. So mine's is like it's an anxiety type of thing.
Yeah.
Not a depression, but yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to do all those things and then you realize that like your ability and what you're putting out, your ability and productivity just a lot of times just doesn't match, right? And then people get confused on like, well, I'm scatterbrained, I'm not, but the brain still works, or you're high functioning and they don't understand the experience that you're having on the inside. ADHD can be an invisible, invisible, and so it'll be a day where it's like people may view it like, oh, Keith, she's got it together, she knows what to do, she's on it, and then it's a Friday and I'm depleted, and they're like, why do you look like that? Or like, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? Like it's just a regular Friday, And so it's a very difficult thing to like navigate and to express and to share. And then the frustrating part too is to get to this point of like knowledge of self-envy, and being neurodivergent or neurodivergence as a whole. And then you're educating others and they're just like, yeah, okay, but like I don't even like I hear it goes in one ear and out the other, and you're constantly explaining, and then you're also putting yourself at risk because when you open up and say, hey, this is my diagnosis, this is what's going on, then you run the risk of people
using it against you.
Oh my, and they don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah.
They may say like, she got ADHD.
Right.
Go ahead, go make them calls. Go ahead, or like, and they don't think they're being hard.
I like years ago, maybe like 2015, and I wasn't diagnosed until, was it this year? It was last year, 2024.
Yeah.
And they would call me Hillary. Hillary from
oh my God, yeah.
On my jobs, and I was like,
right.
Hillary gives ditzy, Hillary gives like what? And I'm just like, I'm very intelligent. Don't play with me.
You're like, stop playing with me.
Like, what? So it's just like that label too for women. I don't know how it is for men, but like you being spacey and like you like not knowing when it's not an intelligence thing. It's a what type of thing? Like, what would you, executive functionings?
Absolutely.
Like how do we explain it to people who, I guess, what it does to our brain or what our brain looks like when it comes to like processing things?
Right. It's a party going on out there, and to be honest with you, it is, and it's a party, but it's not necessarily a fun party all the time. Like sometimes it's really fun if you're in a safe space and your expectations are reasonable and you're able to take care of yourself, and you have other people there that are open and honest with you, and you know what to expect, and they embrace you. Yeah. But then if you find yourself like in a toxic environment or a toxic relationship or anything like that, it's just not in a space to thrive. And then we also have rejection sensitivity because we have ADHD. You're corrected thousands times more than the average person, right? Especially once you get to this point, like in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and you're getting diagnosed and you didn't understand, you didn't know what was going on in all those years. It's kind of, I hate using the term trauma because it depends on the individual, but it can be a traumatic experience, especially for men, right? It's like, how much does it take to manage a child's behavior who's neurodivergent as they're learning, growing, developing, and they're doing all these wacky things that you gotta like correct and like guide and all of that. And what does that look like? And what are the effects of that? So having ADHD can be a very difficult thing to navigate. I don't think people realize how serious it is, especially for women, because we know how to mask. Now, I don't want to say just women, it's women and men too. Like, especially if you're in an environment where, being Black is very much a tone. There's ain't nothing wrong with you. Ain't nothing but what they can.
Depends on your tone. Depends on your household.
Yeah. So when you're brought up in that, it's very hard to seek help sometimes. Or you may play games with you. I find myself playing games with myself where it's like, I had a really good week, man. Like I ate breakfast every day, I did free in my water. I kept my office keys, whatever. And I'm like, this is great. I'm on a roll. Okay, I can do this. Yeah. And then the next week I forget to take my medicine, or I say in my mind, play games like I don't think I needed it, and I did need it. And I find myself like, the half the day is gone. I didn't get things.
Why do you think that it goes untreated? I mean, there's research about like why, and what I did see, and maybe you can add to it, is that the studies were all about for white men. Yes. They were all men centered and all for white people.
Right. And it's still a very, very new diagnosis that lots of clinicians that work side by side with really don't know anything about it. So we really started to talk about it. If people think that they know, or they're just going based on the actual name of the diagnosis, but the deep dive in there's so much more to it. And then we're all so different, but then we're similar too at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. Ooh, not gonna watch. So what I did learn in my research was that thank God for it.
Just get my back.
Right. She gave us a Beyonce moment.
See, that was ADHD moment. Focus. No, it's like on the watch.
It's fine.
Did I throw it? What did I do with it?
Yeah, you were still like, it's fine.
Right.
We keep going. Okay. So in my research, I saw that additionally, adult ADHD may also be mistaken for other mental health conditions. And so that's why I felt like a breath of fresh air, low-key. And because I was like, is it trauma? Is it this? And I mean, we all have levels of that, but just to have a name and an understanding about like,
and how it impacts you, like it makes us exhausted.
Right? Yes, the fatigue is real.
Yes, I was explaining this to some students the other day who have ADHD. I was saying, because I was talking about sleep hygiene, which it can be very difficult for us to sleep. And then when you put electronics in it, and then it makes it even harder to navigate the things we, our less preferred tasks, like coming to school, going to work, all those kinds of things. And I was explaining to them how neurotypical people, it's like having an iPhone and a charger with you at all times and a plug to plug it into. Whereas when you're neurodivergent, it's kind of like having your iPhone, let's say you start the day on a full charge, and that's like a good night's sleep, but you don't have the luxury of the charger. Like, you got to manage that battery for the rest of the day. And so sometimes we, with impulses, with seeking dopamine, like sometimes we use up that energy. Sometimes I'll use that energy kicking. You know what I mean? Because it feels good. Like, for me, the dopamine, of course, is food, sugar, and interactions with others. Partly why I became a social worker. I love people. I love talking to them. It just lights me. It fills me up. Yeah. So if I'm in my office and I'm trying to do something and I can't focus or whatever, I might come out and try to find somebody to have a little kiki with a little small talk and then come back in. It could be about nothing. I love that. But yeah.
Really good. So, Mr. Smith, so Deonte, yo, we go by last names at the work, so it's kind of. Did you know anybody growing up that had it, like, or was it how were they framed? Like, I remember in high school, for me, there was like, and I went to a small private school, but there was like, I guess the special needs teacher, and it was like she worked with 5 people in the whole school, and it was just like, oh, okay. The whole time I could have been that joint too. Right. It wasn't like a thing. I don't know. Like, do you remember anybody getting supports, or was it normalized to?
No, I don't. Now that I think back, that's the first time I ever thought about that.
Yeah.
No, none of my peers know if they had it or not.
Yeah.
Because just going back to earlier, I knew I had it, but I didn't know everything that it meant.
What it meant. Like, no one really provided that psychology.
No one did. And the most, as working with Keith is how I'm really becoming more
Me too.
educated about it. But no, I'm really trying to think.
Yeah.
But
when I look now, oh my God, it's like I could see a neurodivergent personality trait. Yeah. But it's all about convincing the person. Like, not convincing the person to like go find out, or like, is it whatever. And then some people, when I bring it up, they're like, oh, me too. And I'm like, I knew it, but sometimes they were an earlier diagnosis. But a lot of times earlier diagnosis, especially around the time when he was a child and earlier, there's not a lot of psychoeducation. And even the kids that I encounter now, you got all the way to 6th grade, you got diagnosed in 1st grade. You know that you have ADHD, but you have no clue what it is.
Yeah.
None of it. They don't know what their accommodations are. They don't understand it, when they use them, what their rights are, all those kinds of things. And I really make it my business to empower them with that knowledge, because it's empowering to know how it impacts you, because you're not walking around lost or just doing anything to kind of seek normalcy. You understand yourself better and what you need to do, and like, oh, I just need to go take a nap, or you know what, maybe I shouldn't go out tonight and catch up on my sleep, or do some self-care or whatever. Whereas before, when I wasn't aware, I was doing all kind of toxic things, to seek dopamine, to feel better, to whatever. If it's excessively drinking coffee, drinking Red Bulls, other crazy things that are really unhealthy, and patterns that a lot of the children develop to try to feel normal, when all in all, if you fully understood yourself, there are more healthy things that you would do to keep yourself in balance.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know what made me want to get an evaluation, but it was, I think, socially for me. It's like, I know sometimes it's like, I used to overshare like crazy when I was younger. Other people's business, my business, but not out of like being messy. It was just like, oh, well, I probably shouldn't have said that. And then I'm thinking about it, ruminating all night about every conversation. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, no, there has to be peace. Yeah. Like, towards conflict with my boo. Like, it's just like, oh wait, I'm sorry. And it's just like, okay, I gotta figure me out. And it's been very empowering, because now.
And then you can tell your partner too that like, hey, I'm educating them. Yeah. And I remember it used to be a thing about.
Right. It makes it better.
You're going to get better.
Did you understand?
Yeah, and then you
try to understand it.
Yeah, and then for me, having a neurodivergent partner, he's not fully self-aware. He whatever, like you, like early diagnosis, all those kinds of things. obvious as a child as he was showing out, right? But now as an adult, I'm fully aware of how it impacts me, and me just knowing myself helps me to know him and how he can navigate, the relationship a lot better. And then I communicate the things that I need.
Yeah.
And when I get exhausted or I can't, whatever, and it's unexplainable because it's like you function so high all the time. It's like, but I'm not it's a myth that we're like an energizer, but like we just keep going and we down.
I definitely need space to just kind of dial back. Yeah. So how I explain it is I really need people around me like 24/7 in my real, but I also need like my 50% to myself to relax myself. Yeah. And this just goes back to a conversation me and you were having the other day. Because I have a baby on the way, something else I wanted to pick your brain about is something that you said stood out to me, and it really made me emotional when I said, how one of the ways I manage my ADHD is having days of rest. Mm-hmm. So if I am going 5 days a week, some of these things I create on my own to do, like, I'll take on this task. Yeah. So that day of rest really helps me to reset, to organize everything in my brain and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so on and so forth. And now with having soon having a child, how am I going to be organized this now? Because my day of rest is gone. Yeah. That gives me anxiety. Since I'm just trying to figure out what's going to be the new, I don't take medicine. What's going to be my new coping mechanism now that that day of rest is gone?
Probably the gym. At least that's what it was for my husband. I don't think he intentionally, you know what I mean? But when I had the baby, when I birthed my first child, when we had my stepson, it was a rough transition, but for him, he really stuck to going to the gym, and it annoyed me a little bit because I'm like, but it really was something that helps him cope with all the changes and all of those kinds of things that came along with having a baby. And I know I changed. Mm-hmm. I was very anxious. I wanted to do it perfect. I wanted to this and this, just all kinds of things happen like that I didn't anticipate. Mm-hmm. Becoming a parent and all the stressors, and the way he managed it was, going to the gym. Mm-hmm. And possibly seeking out medication. And then too, you being young is a good thing because you have more family support. Right. So it could be like, hey mom, you can already start strategizing, like, I'm going to need a day, or I'm going to need a certain amount of hours to recharge and set it up right with the grandparents, like if it's like every Saturday or something like that. Yeah.
So having that structure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But just not even, because the thing is, you don't even take into account how much recharge time you have each day. Right? Because we'll burn out, right? And then have that day or 2 days where we're trying to regroup. Mm-hmm. But like each day you have time. When you have the baby, sometimes you don't, right? Or you're being creative, or it's unhealthy ways you're staying up late to capture some alone time. Mm-hmm. And then you're starting off depleted and all that kind of stuff.
So would you say that it's not even an each day thing? Maybe it's like individualizing, like, okay, where are my moments?
Yeah.
It's a day.
Mm-hmm. So now it's a moment. Pockets of peace. Yeah. Right. What's her name? It's the creator on Instagram that she used to do these pockets of peace each day. And it was like, oh, that's nice. Of course, her house, she had a lot more luxury and all that, but it really is that, like, just capturing the moment. Because with ADHD, that overthinking of like, it got to be perfect, it got to look like this, it's got to be the whole day, it's got to be this many hours. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we need a slow start to things. The transitions, all of that. And having a kid is almost like it's a reminder that you're not in control.
Yeah. Well,
I'm accepting that, because I think I struggle with. So okay, I know I'm not in control, but I'm angry about that. Mm-hmm. It's like, I got to regulate that anger, because it's just like, learning to let things be a little bit more fluid and like.
Because when you have ADHD, it's like the parenting that comes along with that is very much, because now me parenting neurodivergent children that also happen to be like advanced. It's very hard. Because
let's clear this up. It's not an intelligence thing. Like,
absolutely not. And it drives me crazy because people really hold on to that belief. Educators hold on to that belief, right? Because it took you so long to take the test. Don't mean that you're not intelligent. And then it's like, we got to look at, hopefully this will end up, this new era of us getting more information about neurodivergence. I hope it leads to a more of a variety of ways to determine intelligence. Right? Because, it doesn't look the same, but does that mean you're not, like, does a standardized test really tell you how intelligent someone is?
Yeah, because we know autistic children and adults who are like geniuses, right? And so advanced. So,
but because the world doesn't accommodate us very well, we usually don't get to see our fullest potential underneath someone else's company, guidance, those types of things, because they require, be here at this time, do this and that time, and it doesn't work for our brain, and it's not the best thing for us. You got to let us do our thing, and that's the hardest part, and it's been the hardest part for me to navigate employment, right? Is it's not warm and fuzzy, it's not welcoming. You're in your internship, and they were like, I like the way you think, I like the way you sound. I never thought about it like that. I like the way that's the ADHD thing, because we're always thinking about things in a way that nobody else is.
Yeah,
y'all. So I saw this really cool quote from Dr. Edward Hollowell, who's a psychiatrist, and it really reminded me to reframe how we think about it. And he said, the flip side to distractibility is curiosity. I said, ooh, because it just made me want to think about it as like, how is this our superpower? And I know people say that word a lot, but how do you feel like ADHD has served you well?
I'm able to do what other people cannot do. I'm able to get, once I've learned how to really make it work for him, in the best way possible.
Yeah.
So, an example, cleaning my house, but may take somebody like an hour. I'll clean this whole house in, under 30 minutes. So I'm in like every place ever. So now I'm going to the restroom, to clean the toilet. I'm like, oh, well, while I'm at wash my hands and make up the bed too. That's in the bedroom. Let me sleep in here too, and go sleep there. Sleep in the living room as well. So, I think because it's, my mind's moving so fast, try to complete all of these tasks. Use my ADHD.
Yeah. So that really helps you to have a nice environment, a peaceful place that people want to come to,
right,
and things like that. What about you?
I think ADHD helps me understand people better. Like, being a therapist, I think is definitely a boost, like a cheat code or something, right? Really understanding people and being able to connect, and have empathy, and I never lose my curiosity and my youthful spirit, I guess, playful spirit or whatever. I think it is a superpower because it also helps people just be themselves around me. I think, from all walks of life. So I think that's where ADHD definitely is a superpower for me, and then to the creativity. Yes.
Talk about that, because I was looking up, I was like, who are some inspirational public figures that people know that have it? And I found a list of people. Will Smith, this is allegedly. Pharrell Williams, Simone Biles talks heavily about her mental health. Solange Knowles, Russell Westbrook, Michael Phelps, Adam Levine. So these are artists, these are basketball players, these are gymnasts, these are comedians and singers. So I'm just like, every space, we all have different types of brains, but it doesn't mean that you can't perform well or you can't do well.
That's true. Yeah. Especially if you're allowed to have some level of autonomy.
Yeah.
And I realized that this last school year, having someone manage me that really welcomed the autonomy, because usually I would say why don't we do this thing, or this would be so cool in this, or why don't we try that, and having somebody actually say oh, that's a good idea. Okay, look, this is how we gonna do it.
Yeah. And
pull out a sheet of paper and map it out. And affirm me, help show me how to do it. Show me how to see it through.
Yes.
Because the idea is I'm really good at that part. The seeing the things through, it's the dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And have somebody to respect my mind in that sense of
Yes.
Wow, like she's competent. She knows what she's doing. She adds a lot of value. That was the first time I had truly experienced that without a but, you know? And it really motivated me to tap into even more, like do even more, because I would have ideas and I would get discouraged. But like, it's definitely doable to be successful, but you got to be doing something that you love and that you're passionate about. Has to be. It got to fill you up. I wouldn't go to work. I would have been doing something else. I would not be a social worker if it didn't light my brain on fire. And so, and being a problem solver, very creative problem solver. That's. I feel like that's definitely my super. I know a lot of people.
Yeah, I heard from my therapist. He was like, you need an external. You need external things, because internal, like we talked about, is like it's moving so fast. And so something like as simple as at work, a timer, or just I need breaks. Like I need to get up and move, because I have weights in my office and it helps me, because I'm like, okay, I need to like and then I come back, because I need external things outside of me, because I can't obviously depend on just all of this.
What's going on in here? Because it'll take you down a magic ride. You've been like, what's going on? I don't even know what's going on anymore. You know?
So just a question. Something that stood out to me as a child is they always having ADHD equaled being extra hyper or more hyper than others. So is that the same for everybody that has ADHD?
It just looks different. Right? So like for voice, a lot of times we can see it externally, but for girls, a lot of times, and women, it's in here, right? There are some women that you can visibly see that they're hyperactive or what have you, but it can turn into like shopping excessively.
Oh yes, overspending.
It could be okay. Look, like sometimes I'll go extreme with not buying anything because I'm afraid, like kind of like how alcohol,
like black or white, it's like either extreme or the other.
It's all in or nothing. If I'm planning a party, it's like, whoa, why did it went too far?
Yeah.
It's like I gotta go hard or not do it. And it turns into a whoa until it's over with. I can't even go, you know? It could be something I'm not even into. I don't even want to do it. Now I've got to do it to here because we're doing it. It's got to be like, I found another layer, a way to do it better. Or like, oh, we should do this too. Oh, and that. And it, you know, it can be a good thing, but when you're not rich.
So for people who are not neurodivergents, like we are, but still could benefit from like the stuff we're talking about, like when it comes to organization or staying focused or coping strategies, like what are some things that, like some takeaways they could give even in their relationships or on the job?
Well, for one, having grace for yourself, two, and compassion for yourself, number one, but then also two, like setting your life up in a way, like getting a planner that doesn't work, like it's not going to work. With some people it does, right? Some people you can hyper focus on a planner and those types of things. With some it might be electronically. There's certain things, a family calendar with Apple, that with Apple Music, where you can share it with your spouse or your children, or your family or friends, whoever, and sharing certain things and putting the address and doing it right then. And then having something that's manageable.
Yeah.
Because I find myself going over and over and over, beating myself up because I am in a role, or I took on a position that requires an excessive amount of focus. Or the paperwork side of it, right? And it can be overwhelming, and then you're trying to constantly create a new system. There comes a time where, the systems aren't systeming, right? And so if your issue is not ADHD or is anxiety, depression, things of that nature, there's something called ADA accommodations.
Yes.
Go ahead and look into that. You like what you're doing, you want to stay where you are, you feel like it could work if I had this, if I had that, if I had a little bit more time to do this or what have you, and get those ADA accommodations, and then have those conversations with your supervisor. And if you don't know and you're struggling with those things, go get a psychological assessment.
Yeah.
And find out what's really going on. And it's a freeing experience because you're not thinking constantly in a state of what's wrong with me. Because the somatic aspect too.
Yeah.
When you're exhausted, you're like, oh my God, what's right? Is it the flu? Is it this? I'm dying. But the whole time it's like, no, you need to take a nap. You need to recharge. You need to eat something. You need to drink some water. You need to get, and being aware of what it is that's going on with you, what the symptoms look like and how to manage them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And if you have kids, the kid version of an accommodation ADA is
having
504 plan.
Yes. Don't be afraid, like for yourself and for your child, to viciously advocate for them. Get a 504 plan. What's wrong with that? It's only an advantage that they can carry all the way to the collegiate level. Okay. They can be taking their exams in a room by themselves. They can get extra time to do their papers and all of that. And so that keeps your child from being limited. Sometimes we think getting IEPs and 504 plans limit your child when in all actuality, it opens them up. Right. So like if your child has ADHD and they need occupational therapy, speech therapy, whatever the recommendations are, follow the recommendations. Get your child what they need. So when they become an adult, they can say, you know what? When we hear all these stories about like, my mom never believed in this, or I didn't get tested, or I didn't find out till I was 45 and I struggled my whole life. To keep that from being your child's story, it's to follow through. Listen to the recommendations. Ultimately, it's up to you. But follow through and get your child the support that they need. And the schools have the duty to provide those things, especially if your child qualifies. So even receiving services like therapy and all of that, it can make a world of difference. And I'm reminded by that. I was going to say every time I see Smith, I'm reminded by that every time I talk to Deonte, because his emotional intelligence is a lot higher than his peers. And a part of that is his mother getting the services and the support that he needed. So now you're an adult. So when things don't feel right, he knows I need to talk to the therapist, or I want to talk about this, or to even bounce those things off. And I always tell him, wow, I'm so impressed, because when I was your age, I was, doing some unhealthy things. So when I say that, right, I would do unhealthy things to cope, going out, drinking, being reckless, shopping, spending all my money, just all these things to try to feel better, everything other than taking care of my mental health. And so when you start your child off, when they become an adult, because don't get it twisted, right? So she's also in therapy, all of that. So it's a different outcome as an adult, because ADHD is a very severe mental health diagnosis that can be debilitating. And a lot of people struggle with it, and they think, oh, she's bipolar, or oh, they're whatever. And in actuality, it's untreated ADHD or autism.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And then they're just going on, just functioning the best way they can. As some would say, like raw dogging through life, without treatment, without a plan, without medication. And it can be very, 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 very debilitating diagnosis. And I don't think people realize how serious it is. And I think at some point they're going to change the name.
Oh, they probably will.
Yeah, to encompass what it really, really, truly consists of. And I think that would help us too. I'm not live to see it, but I may not benefit from it in the next 20 years or whatever of working, but hopefully the education I provide to others throughout these next 20 years of work or whatever will be helpful for the people coming up behind me, and increase the level of understanding and compassion and all of that. So by the time my kids enter the workforce or enter their careers, that it'll be a much more welcoming space.
Yeah. Mr. Smith, what would you say is like your takeaway? How would you encourage somebody who maybe is trying to figure themselves out, or they in a relationship with somebody that has ADHD, or they're newly diagnosed and try to figure it out? What would you?
What I would say is, let it show up however however you feel that it needs to show up. Just be your authentic self. I would tell them, definitely stay in therapy.
And for the people of faith, because that's another conversation for another day, but that it's okay to like lean on your faith and also
Right. Yeah.
get support in other ways.
Well, that's definitely how I manage as well as
Sure, Anchor.
Definitely. Staying, reading my word keeps me grounded. Even when it comes to oversharing, like a scripture may pop in my head, like, oh, don't gossip or keep your mouth closed. And, yeah, that's how I manage as well too.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank y'all for being on the show, but also just being good friends. Honestly, y'all are answered prayers.
Aww.
I was like, I'm not gonna cry, but no, it's a blessing at this stage in life to have like authentic friendships where you don't feel like you have to be different around.
Yeah.
You can't say certain things, or you can't do. It's every time I see y'all at work, it's like yes. And I purposely sometimes have to stay in my office so that I don't like stay in there too long because I could just talk to y'all all day.
Yeah. I feel the same, because it's like me, it's seeing your people, and I also didn't want to leave this out because I'm, not that it's what I'm doing, right? But meditation and exercise is also a really good tool too, right? And finding something that helps you with your focus, like I found that reading is something I just got back into, and using whatever you need, like a Kindle e-reader, right? Like. And learning more about yourself, or even just finding healthy ways to get that dopamine.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for coming. Check out this episode, y'all, and just continue to take care of yourselves.
Yes.
Don't judge yourself too harshly, but just be self-aware and just have grace for yourself and others. So, thank y'all for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye.